I'm speaking to you from Treaty 6 territory, and I acknowledge the Métis people who share a deep connection to this land. I'm joined today by Tom Ganor and Madison Norman, two Albertans who have deliberately been left out by the UCP government's so-called relief payments. Now, when the UCP said help was on the way, they should have said help was on the way only for some Albertans. The UCP specifically chose who they were willing to help and who would be left out. We know millions of Albertans have been left behind and left out. This cost of living crisis, not seen in 40 years, comes after a disruptive and expensive pandemic. Piled on that was 4 years of harmful UCP policy changes. Harmful policy changes like removing the NDP insurance and utility caps, increasing tuition, increasing interest rates on student debt, cuts to municipalities causing sharp property tax increases. It all adds up and resulted in an acute affordability crisis. The UCP government is fortunate to be enjoying strong oil revenue. All Albertans should benefit from that, but they are not. The UCP affordability plan gives $600 to families with children, some disabled Albertans, and seniors who earn under $180,000 a year. Millions were left out. And based on the UCP's own estimates, there are currently almost 1 million disabled Albertans, but only 7.5% of disabled Albertans are on AISH. Contrary to the UCP's ableist belief that all disabled Albertans who need relief must be on AISH, most are not. Disabled Albertans are students, or they're working while they're struggling with extra costs related to disability and inflation, while also dealing with lower wages, less employment opportunities than their non-disabled peers. Singles, couples without children, the working poor, and the vast majority of disabled Albertans have been ignored and forgotten. That leaves millions without the help that they too deserve during this affordability crisis. Food Banks Canada Hunger Count 2022 notes that 45.4% of households, and that represents 29% of the population, accessing food banks are single Albertans. Unless these singles are on AISH or income support, they are not getting any help from the UCP. Now, last week we learned that Danielle Smith is going to pay Preston Manning over $50,000 a month to help cement her support on the far right. Taxpayers are on the hook for a $250,000 contract that is nothing more than political pandering. Now, I'd like to turn it over to Tom so you can hear a little bit about his struggles.
Thank you, Marie. I am one of those Albertans the UCP has decided to ignore with their so-called relief payments. It's extremely disappointing, but not surprising, that the UCP government would create a program so limited in scope that it excludes a huge portion of the general population. I'm married but don't have kids. My wife and I are both under 65. And although I have what can at times be a debilitating disability, I'm not eligible for AISH because I can work full-time. I'm very happy to see people with kids and some people with disabilities get a little extra money to help them with these financially challenging times. There are thousands of us who don't fit into the government's very narrow parameters for this program. The price of groceries, the cost to fill up a vehicle, paying mortgage payments, rising auto insurance and utility rates, because the UCP removed caps, all those expenses are still there, even though we're a couple with no kids. My wife works 2 part-time jobs and I'm working full-time, but it's tough right now. Where we had a little bit of comfort room before, a few years ago, that cushion is gone and things are pretty tight. I have Crohn's disease. The last 7 years have been quite difficult for us. There were stretches where I could only work 3 to 4 months out of the year. Thankfully, within the last year, we have gotten the disease under control a bit. I'm working full-time now, which is better compared to the previous years, but the disease is still there and it's not going away. So although I am able to work, because of my disease, there are days that I just can't. I would say, on average, I take more sick days than the regular person. I have a surgery coming up sometime this year, and I'll have to be off work, so that little bit of extra money could have been quite helpful. And now, with Danielle Smith talking about health spending accounts, I can tell you there's no way I could afford, with my condition, to get better on a health spending account. At least I am sure I will end up severely in debt. And the more the government moves to privatize healthcare, the more it's going to hurt people. The future is pretty scary right now. Far too many people have been left behind by the UCP government. I'm here today to remind Danielle Smith that we are here and we don't deserve to be ignored or forgotten.
Thank you, Tom. And now I'd like to invite Madison to the microphone.
Thank you, Marie. Like Tom, I don't qualify for the UCP's affordability plan. I'm 22, I don't have any children or a disability. I work full-time as a receptionist at a law firm while attending university to finish my bachelor's degree with the goal of attending law school in the future. I currently live with my partner, who is 25 and also works full-time. Our combined incomes amount to roughly between $65,000 to $75,000 annually. While this is still quite a lot of money, we barely have any money left at the end of the month to put away for savings or emergencies. Nothing left to pay for debts like tuition or credit. The majority of our income goes to rent, groceries, and other monthly bills. Because of the high cost of living, we're spending about $600 to $800 a month just on groceries, when a year ago, we used to never go over $600 a month. Also, because of the high price of fruits, vegetables, and meats, healthy food choices really take a chunk out of our budget. So to stretch it all out, we are left with lower priced options that are usually processed and unhealthy. Currently, we pay about $1,400 a month for a 2-bedroom apartment, and I'm very thankful that during these challenging times, our prices haven't gone up. I just don't see how young adults like me are able to plan a family when things like rent, groceries, insurance, and utilities are just so high. I also live with an illness that can be quite debilitating. Endometriosis is a chronic disease that affects about 1 in 10 women. I'm currently waiting for surgery to deal with endometriosis, and in the meantime, there are days where I have to miss work just because of the pain. I am also unable to afford treatments like massage therapy, acupuncture, and pelvic floor physiotherapy that might help relieve some of these symptoms. It's disheartening to learn that just because I, like Tom and millions of other Albertans, have been excluded by the UCP government because we don't have children or yet don't fit into a specific category of vulnerability. Also, I do believe that $100 a month for 6 months is not going to raise any Albertan out of poverty, but every little bit does help. So I'm very happy to see families, vulnerable seniors, and people on AISH get a little extra cash. But I believe the eligibility for any affordability plan should be expanded. I echo Tom's call for Danielle Smith and the UCP to acknowledge that they have ignored the struggles of thousands of Albertans and right this wrong.
Thank you. Thank you, Madison. Sorry, let's get my pages here. Danielle Smith and the UCP must act today to include all of those Albertans that they've abandoned with their incompetent relief payments. This assistance needs to be expanded to include all Albertans that really need the support right now. Singles, students, couples without children, disabled Albertans, all of them need assistance. We know that people with disabilities are far more likely to be underemployed, to be working poor, to have lost more work time that isn't paid related to their disability. We also know that there are more expenses related to disability, such as medical supplies, therapies, co-pays, lost work, disability-related equipment, and so much more. And none of these are covered by tax credits, or enough tax credits, to make a difference right now in this affordability crisis. An Alberta NDP government will immediately increase the value of vital benefits cut by the UCP, and we will put them back to where they should have been had that cut not been made 3 years ago. So that's approximately a $218 million commitment. And that's only one measure that we'll be taking as we build our strategies to reduce poverty and exclusion in Alberta. So for now, we urge the UCP to correct their mistakes and extend support to those people who need it, people like Tom and people like Madison. Thank you, and we're happy to take your questions.
Thank you. Just a reminder that if you're on Zoom, it's the raise hand function. If you're on the phone, it's *9, and we'll start with questions in the room.
My first question is for Marie. If you can talk about what exactly you hope to see, and if you have any estimates about how much this would cost to expand the eligibility of this program.
So I don't have an exact estimate of what that would cost, but I can get that to you. So really what we're asking for is, the government has been very clear, is they want to support people who they define as vulnerable. So those are people living in poverty and people with disabilities. But what they've done is excluded a huge swath of people. They have assumed, and wrongly assumed, that only people with disabilities that receive disability pension, whether it's through AISH or income support or CPP disability, they've assumed those are the only people that are struggling that have disabilities, when in fact there are hundreds of thousands of more disabled people that are incurring extra costs related to their disability, as you heard, that have been completely left out. So unless you're a disabled person that has children or is that over 65 or on a disability pension program with the government of Alberta, you are left out in the cold. No help from this UCP government. So we know students are struggling. We know people that are working at minimum wage jobs, forced to take multiple jobs. They're all struggling. They've all been left out. And we are urging this government to stop right now and to include these folks. This government's been very fortunate. It's a windfall of oil and gas prices, commodity prices, and all Albertans should be enjoying that. So we've got a huge swath of people that are really, really struggling coming out of this pandemic, or sort of trying to recover from this really acute period during the pandemic, and once again they've been left behind. And I just, it's hard to watch the UCP sort of pat themselves on the back for all of the help they're providing disabled Albertans, when really they're only providing, it's really only 7.5% of disabled Albertans are on like AISH and getting support. So it's very misleading.
And just to follow up with Tom and Madison, when the minister has been asked about the people who aren't eligible before, he points to the utility rebates and the gas tax. Have you guys seen an impact from those rebates, and what would you like to see moving forward?
Yeah, maybe I'll get Tom to answer that question, and then maybe you can want to say.
We have been impacted by the rebates. However, they only are one small portion of a larger problem, right? And I'm not the only one dealing with this. There's a lot of people who make a lot more people struggling than I am, and I don't think that one program is a solution, overall solution to the affordability crisis.
So I would say, with regards to the utility rebate, where I'm currently living right now, I would definitely say I have not even seen any sort of slight change with regards to utilities. I am someone right now who can't afford a car, so really with the gas rates, that doesn't really affect me at all. I am 100% sure that it is helping certain Albertans, and it is, I would say, a little bit goes a long way, but I definitely think there is quite a bit more room for improvement with that.
Yeah. If I can just, supplement that, is that this is the way this government acts, a little bit too late, and usually it takes a lot of public pressure to push them into a corner, and it's usually, the least action that they take. And so these rebates, we've identified the flaws all along, and it's really just not sufficient. And again, they removed these caps. We have seen prices just escalate, and it's half measures once again. And this is the government just unwilling to hear from Albertans when they're saying, this is not enough, this is not working, you need to fix it. They're choosing to keep the earplugs in.
Thank you. We'll do one more call for questions. It's raise hand if you're on Zoom, *9 if you're on the phone. One more in the room.
We heard Manitoba announcing a second round of funding. They had previously targeted families. Is that the type of thing you're looking for, something similar to what Manitoba. I think they're calling it the Carbon Tax Relief Fund, but what is that sort of what you're looking for?
You know what, a second round would be great, or just an inclusion, or just, an acknowledgement that, oops, we made a mistake. We forgot about 2 million Albertans that are really struggling and could use some help. Let's readjust the criteria. Let's look at people who are low-income Albertans, disabled Albertans that all need assistance. So whether that's done through a second payment or an expansion of eligibility to this current one, either way works. I think that we just need to get the help out to the people that need it, and UCP have failed to do that on a large scale.
Thank you. One more pass for questions. Raise hand if you're on Zoom, star 9 if you're on the phone. Seeing none, that concludes our press conference today. Thank you, everyone.
So much for watching, and to learn more, check out albertasfuture.ca.